Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Colleagues. Cheers.
Hello.
This happens to be a very special Coffee with Colleagues because I'm talking with not only a business partner of mine, but my life partner, my wife, Tatiana Franco-Marquard, is here to share some stories from her life, her business life, things she's learning from the pandemic. And really, the goal of these interviews has just been to introduce some of my team members to you. And so you can get to know who we are at Conference Direct, what we do, and how we try to cater to our clients' needs. Tati, I am honored to be talking with you today. We talk every day, all day, but this is a bit of a special occasion because I really think you have a lot to offer from your wisdom and your experience. I've always admired you from a personal side. As most people know, we were friends for 8 years before we started dating. Now we're 13 years knowing each other, 5 years dating, and a year married. My God, almost a year married. It's crazy.
Lucky you.
Lucky me indeed. People who know you know that's pretty much exactly right, your style, that kind of joke like that. But before I start telling your story, why don't you tell it yourself? Give me a 3-minute introduction to who is Tati Franco-Marquard and what do we need to know about you?
Happy to. Hello, handsome.
Hi.
You mean this wouldn't be a good time if to ask you if you picked up paper towels? No.
We'll have the discussion on the shopping list later.
All right, about me. So Tati Franco-Marquard now as of almost a year ago. My path. So I, like many of us in this industry, come from a hospitality background. I was in hotels for, I don't know, I kind of stopped, let's say somewhere between 15 and 18 years because I stopped counting. And most of my background is in revenue management. I met my partner and now team director, Jeremy, in one of those hotel jobs at the beautiful Westin Diplomat in Florida. And I was already into revenue management. And I could witness firsthand how the site selection and the sourcing and everything that Jeremy was working on was so fun. It didn't seem super complicated at the time. And after many opportunities in the revenue management world and learning that and really enjoying it, because I have nothing bad to say about that, honestly, it's all good stuff. I just wanted to be more like many of us, independent, wanted to be, the child came out, the 6-year-old now, and wanted to be home more, be in more control of my schedule. And I was always somewhat interested in the sales process. So this seemed like a good combination of some of the skills I had, what I wanted to accomplish from a personal standpoint, and just making a change. And that's how this came about. So I started asking questions, mostly to you, as you recall, and just kind of keeping an eye on what was going on, learning from your own process. And one day I just decided to, I'll do it now or never. I think at the time I was doing Cuba. So I was going to the island once a month, and that whole transition was so fun.
Yeah, so
But
hold
as
on
you
right there.
recall,
Talk a little bit about your career experience because you do have some amazing hotels you've worked with. You're mostly in the revenue management side, as you said. You had some unique properties that really you cut your teeth in even some hard properties that I think were really tough to sell, which I think gained you a ton of respect within the industry as well. It's something I always admired about you. Tell me about your path from the hotel side. You mentioned Cuba. What do you mean you were doing in Cuba, and maybe even back up before that? What were your roles in the hotel side? What was your job?
Yeah, so not really planned, but I ended up spending a lot of time in the Caribbean. After the Diplomat, I joined the luxury team of Ritz-Carlton to do Caribbean Ritz-Carlton. So I was jumping from one island to the other, from one meeting to the other, different owners, different budget meetings, all that fun stuff. Even though I was based out of Florida, Coconut Grove, exactly, I was going in between, but it was super fun, beautiful products, beautiful landscape, all that stuff about the Caribbean that you always dream and seen in vacation and movies. This is kind of what I was seeing all the time. So no complaints there, except, I was gone a lot. And I just become an auntie. My brother and sister had their first baby girl, so that also changed things for me because I wanted to be a part of it. So that's kind of when it started kind of changing things for me mentally. After that, I was approached by Starwood again to go and open Vieques. So we were starting the projects in Puerto Rico. There was about 3 or 4 properties opening at the same time: the Sheraton, the St. Regis, in Dorado Beach, and Vieques. I'm sure I'm missing something, and I apologize. But it's
for those who don't know, Vieques is a tiny island just off the coast of Puerto Rico. It's actually part of Puerto Rico, and they had a beautiful hotel there. It's no longer open, as I understand it. But the W Vieques was one of my favorite hotels in the industry, not just because you work there, but because it was a truly special place. It was a really remarkable property.
Really good times. Yeah, my heart, Puerto Rico after Colombia and the States will be my next home because we spent a lot of time there and it was just beautiful memories. Yeah. So Vieques, so it's this tiny island. They say it is the size of Manhattan, and there's the airport is very small. There was a complete airlift problem. We couldn't get enough people into the island at reasonable prices. You had to come into San Juan. There was no TSA, so there was this whole logistical nightmare that became kind of the focus of our team to just try to make that whole thing work, how to get people there. People wanted to get there, but it was complicated. So Vieques, the property was beautiful. The team was super, it was people from everywhere that wanted to experience the whole island living. And I was still based out of Miami. I think at that time Starwood had an office in Miramar, so it was very random. But I was going back and forth. Super fun, a great experience. I learned a lot about, real struggles when it comes to filling up a hotel that is absolutely beautiful, but really, really, really hard to get to. That was the highlight. Then from there, I want to say I spent time in Florida. And that's when I went to Fort Lauderdale, perhaps, and spent some time locally. I think Dia was at the time 3 years old, so I definitely didn't want to be jumping many different places. I wanted to stay a little more local. So I joined that B resort team, and another fun experience. It was going through a full renovation. I was rebranding for the Starwood people that they might recall the Sheraton and what do we call it? The Yankee Trader situation.
Yankee Trader and Yankee Clipper,
There you go. So I was commuting now by car instead of on a plane for the first time in a while. And another fun experience. But at that time, again, you and I, we were traveling to Rhode Island a lot. We were spending some fun summers there, and I started getting more of an urgency to change my schedules and be more flexible with my time. And that became such a passion, as you recall, for me I really just wanted to be around and make sure that I was doing pickups and drop-offs. And we've been very blessed to not need third-party daycare, which is something that, of course, a lot of people have to deal with, by lack of better words. But we were very blessed. We had a lot of support, and yet it wasn't as easy for me to want to be gone. I wanted to be more available for the offspring. So that's when I started asking more questions and more questions about, I really want to make a move. At the time, if you recall, we were about to do that. We were considering, but then Cuba came along. And when I left Starwood, I remember telling my VP at the time, I said, hey, I'm leaving. I love you guys. But if we ever open anything in Cuba, if that really ever happens, you know, at the time the embargo was there still, it was kind of a joke, but if it happens, you better call me because this is something that I would love to do. Haha, you know, like a W would be really fun in Havana. It was kind of like the thing. But I never thought that would happen. And then it left. And yeah, little did I know they called, you know, go Obama, or, you know, not to get political. But at that time, when I least expected, I got the callbacks and started saying, hey, were you serious about Cuba? Because this is actually happening. And I'm like, oh man, I think I was about to complete a year would be when they called. And, you know, we talked it out. It was a fun thing for us to do. We were going in a complex. I was the island dorm. So we were supposed to take over 4 or 5 properties to begin. And as you recall, it was a really cool experience. Cuba's just a whole nother spectrum of opportunities, right? Because then you're talking about the internet is the devil, and there's a lot of suspicion for you being spied on or you spying on people. So I had lots of stories to tell about that whole experience, but it was great. It was very educational. We had to really start from scratch. There was no technology, there was no connectivity. So it was pretty old school revenue management. Another great team, people from all over the world. And I had to be there. I was in a business visa, so I would be going in and out every month. Super cool times. But again, there was a lot of traveling. There was a lot of meetings and things like that. And I kept feeling like I needed to go and do, you know, my own thing. I have that control of my time. So that's when I started asking again, like, I think I could do this. And I think we just pulled the plug. It was kind of like now or never kind of a thing.
So by the way, one of my favorite birthday memories of all time was spending my, what was it, my 41st birthday, I think, 42nd birthday down in Cuba with you and a few of your girlfriends. We had an amazing time. And we did a really fun, fantastic photo shoot too that if you're watching this and want to see some photos, hit me up and maybe I'll post a few of that amazing old school, like a Lucy Arnaz kind of photo shoot. It was really cool. Very fun.
That was a great time.
Yeah.
Just a side note on that. I remember like maybe the week before the trip, one of my best friends saying, hey, we're going to be there. Why don't we just take some photos in an old car? And we like Amazon, order dresses and, you know, these sunglasses. And yeah, it turned out pretty cool.
So much fun. I love it. One of my favorite photo shoots I've ever done. That ultimately, as you're talking about your career path, though, you want more control of your time, a little bit more control of your finances and your ability to make money for yourself without having to worry. I remember going through these times with you. You were wondering when the next step is going to come. You know, how is it going to look? What kind of demands were going to be made on you? You know, for travel. In CD, Conference Direct seemed like a great fit for you to take a little bit more control of your path. Tell me why CD specifically? Why did you come? Apart from the fact that I was on board and gave you a pretty good inside scoop. What attracted you about the lifestyle with CD that brought you to the site?
You know, that's a pretty cool question because, as you know, I love the model. I love the business model of CD, but I never wanted to feel like you were talking me into anything. And even when you talk to other people, I'm always the one that tells you, you don't want to convince people. You don't want to sell the idea. You give the information, but that's definitely how I approach this, I think. Being on the hotel side, as many of us had the experience of working with the other partners and seeing their dynamics, their perspective to business. The whole thing about other partners being more about quantity than quality, and how there was an entirely always a partnership between the third party and the hotel. I remember other, you know, third party being a lot more aggressive and with their approach and their contracting. And of course, now being on the side, I understand a little bit of that. But, you know, I always tell us we're in this together. And I mean that because we need each other. And our goal is to make our clients, you know, happy so they come back. So back then I could tell the difference between all that. There were so many of the others, so many. And I obviously had a lot more access to the information from Conference Direct, from even joining you in some trips and meeting some of the amazing people that we now get to work with. And I think that's what it came down to, you know, the quality of the people that make up CD and that we have access to for information, for, you know, just bouncing ideas of each other and being so cool and casual yet professional, but, you know, people that really genuinely care, not about just their customers. We care about each other, and we get to talk about it and have go through struggles and hard times and good times and celebrate. So that's kind of what drove my decision to do it with Conference Direct. And again, of course, you're a big part of it, because I had, again, so much access to information through you and seeing your experience. Because when we became a thing at the time, I think you were in like your second or third year. So I had the opportunity to learn from the good and the bad for that experience. And I had you. So I figured, and, you know, and there was always revenue management. So I always thought, you know, if for any reason this is not what makes me happy and where something I end up being good at, there's always the hotel world to go back to, or whatever comes up next. So
That's a great point, Tati. And I think that that's something that, first of all, I love your story, because it sounds like you've had obviously a lot of adversity in your career, just in the locations you were at. It's not easy to sell Cuba. It's not easy to sell Vegas. That natural inclination to overcome obstacles, I think, is something that's key to any entrepreneur. You've got to be able to understand there's a risk involved and want to be up for the fight. Because if you don't have that grit that we talk about, if you don't have that determination, like you said, you saw my first few years with CD, there were ups and downs. I'll never ever tell anybody that wants to come to this side that it's going to be a cakewalk all the way through, because it's simply not. The difference is the risk that you're assuming. It's the risk on your own terms, as opposed to the risk you're assuming on behalf of a big corporation, where you might get the call at any time. Like, unfortunately, so many friends and colleagues in the industry now are getting that their services are no longer welcome, simply because business has slowed down a little bit, and we're in a position where we can control our destiny a little bit more, and take the experiences we've had on the hotel side to get some wins. So I appreciate your story from that. But now tell me about your book of business. How did you start booking business with Conference Direct? Where did that come from, and how were you able to grow your portfolio of clients?
So I'm going to say 2017, late 17 or 18. I wanted to do then what I'm doing now, which is do nothing, like take some time to, you know, I had been working since I was 16 years old, really hard. I've been trying to do many things at once with, you know, the mommyhood and all the stuff. So I thought at that point I would have a little bit of a break to kind of put things in order.
This is as you're launching your business, you're saying. So as you're starting with leaving the hotel side, coming to CD, you thought you'd have a bit of a break, is what you mean.
Correct. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for keeping me. So yes, I decided to join CD, which was another, I don't know if you're going to touch on this because of my background and how we were kind of thinking, you know, I didn't have a lot of customer experience. Is this coming up, or do you want me to include it here?
Well, we can talk about it. Yeah, you know, I think traditionally the path for most people that come to CD, they have a sales background. You came from revenue management, which is a bit different. We're all part of the same family, but sometimes we're built very differently. And I think, very frankly, the concern for me, and I think the concern for other people within the executive team that Conference Direct had, was how are we going to take a revenue management person and help them get into sales, which, as you tell your story, I'll probably chime in a few times, because I think we get sales and a perception of sales very wrong. And I think as you tell your story, you'll prove the point that you don't have to be this superstar salesperson that has all this slick language to be an effective salesperson and gain very, very loyal clients. So take it away.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much it. We had that concern collectively. I think I was less concerned than others because I felt like, you know, I know when I'm kind of decided to do something, I'm like, boom, I'm gonna make this work. And I started through the holidays. So my plan's like, you know what, it's the first time I'm going to go through like Christmas without having to worry about a sellout hotel and reaching 95% occupancy or above and logging in every second of the day to make sure that we're performing the way we need to perform. So I'm gonna enjoy this time. But little did I know that, you know, there was another plan for me. So you got a call from a former client, kind of a, yeah, let's call it a former client who needed something relatively small. And because we were trying to, you know, chill, you're like, hey, you want to help out with this and see what it is that they need. And I'm like, sure, this will take me, it will be something quick and I can still enjoy my time. So that's how it started. I connected with that one client who also was a friend, and he needed some help in LA with something small that turned out to be 3 clients into it, because he said, oh my God, I know this is like family time, but I have a friend, colleague that could use your help. Would you mind? It was like he was asking me a favor. And I'm like, hey, you know, let's do it. So that was client number 2. And then somehow within that whole week, a 3rd person came up within the same event that needed help. This was for, I'm going to say, a music show out in LA. So I started working with them, and ever since I haven't stopped. Well, until, you know, pandemic happened, but they have been a blessing, and they know how much I love them, but they keep me very busy. I have never gone out to officially prospect. That's not true. I started prospecting and reaching out to many clients, and then I just found I realized I didn't have the time because they kept referring me to people within the industry, like nonstop.
Yeah.
And I was grateful. I was like, what's happening here? I just kept booking, trying to still make some time for the personal process I wanted to go through, that didn't really work out very well. And business just kept coming my way. It was a good thing, retrospectively, because of course now I know that I have a slightly different vision for my business. But at the time, you know, it's fun to know that I'm starting a new project, a new career, and there was demand for what I had to offer. So a little bit more about that is that, of course, you can hear my accent. English is not my first language. And I'm from Colombia, so Spanish it is. And this group of people, bilingual in the music industry, and very big now in Latin music, we just connected. There was a thing that was not just professional. We just became brothers and sisters that understand many things in the business together, that make it through some really difficult tours and logistics. And of course, you know, I'm preaching to the choir, but there was also this bond, this personal bond that we kind of formed that made them feel like they were talking to one of them. It was pretty cool. And that's how I kept being referred, like left, right, and center. At some point, I think I was going a little crazy, but.
Well, I'll say this too. You know, I think you're kind of underselling yourself. I'm glad you're starting to tell a little bit of who some of these folks are, because you're dealing with some very, like, the names of Latin entertainment now. If we said the names of who you're working with, and a lot of the folks who are watching this who are on the hotel side probably already know, but you're dealing with top talent and top entertainment. The message that I get out of what you're saying is, you know, you started with one. It was a referral that I had years ago that I passed on to you and said, hey, just take this and see where you can go with it. And We talk a lot about it. In fact, I mentioned it in our last call, my last call with Vanessa, with this coffee talk. It's, you know, if you're likable and you're trustworthy, those are the cornerstones of any good sales approach. And I think that you showed yourself to be likable. You showed yourself to be trustworthy. The demands in the entertainment industry, as anyone knows who works in it, are not easy. A lot of last minute stuff, a lot of stuff that is dumped on your plate that is a bit of a crisis, which I think, you know, your training in the hotel side in dealing with very adverse circumstances in Cuba and Vieques and the different properties you've had really helped you cut your teeth to deal with the crazy dynamic of entertainment, which, by the way, translates, I think, now as we head or are in the middle of this crisis in the pandemic. These are all tools that I think that have made you the success that you have been, and that you're able to adapt easily, and you made a name for yourself simply by taking care of people. And I think if any message that gets out, people who contemplate coming to the side often say, well, I'm not a salesperson. You don't have to be if you take care of people. That is sales right there. Any good salesperson values relationships over making the sale. And from those relationships come the sale. But it comes a lot more organically and naturally because people naturally do business with people that they like. So I'm kind of tooting your own horn here because you have that likability, you have that trustworthy approach to business, and you have that ability to really connect with people. And I think that speaks volumes over any slick sales approach that you'll ever get. You really value and cherish your clients, and it shows. And they, in turn, treat you like, you know, you are the queen that you are in this industry. They really like you. And from one piece of business has spawned all of these referrals that you've grown an awesome book of business by just taking care of people. So kudos to you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just kind of turned out to be both a blessing and a curse when it comes to the passion that you put directly to people or into people. I remember the times, and you and I have had this conversation a few times, remember the times when I was in the hotel side and it was 9 p.m. and you see my car in the parking lot and call me and say, why are you still at work?
I'd be leaving a site visit or a dinner with a client and you'd still be there in the office working away, and I call you from the parking lot and go home. This was long before we were ever dating. This is back when we were still just friends. But yeah, you definitely have that passion.
Yeah, and I will never forget my mom saying when I missed a couple of, you know, family things, you know, if this is what's happening, maybe your priorities are not in the right place, which really I was like, oh, my mom is feeling that to me. But I was always very into things that I do, or I've always been, and it's kind of, you get sucked in, and I've taken every single one of their tours now, and in the conference world, every time we work together, there's so much, you know, we're all event planners here, and it's all about details, and I get carried away by details, and they seem to like that. They become really depending on me, you know, like for many things that are not even related to the things that we typically do in our role. If you recall, calls at, you know, middle of the night on a Saturday because they're arriving to Vegas and we're in Eastern time. So it's been sometimes frustrating, but for the most part, it's been super fun because it's a complete change from what I had done before, the type of, you know, dynamic and the day-to-day complete change. Now adding just that I had all this flexibility because I was, you know, in control of my own time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how it came about. And the whole thing about revenue management, because I think the kind of how it all kind of connects, of course, there's the experience in the hotel world in general, but coming from that background, it's a fun conflict because you train yourself to be very data driven, to always think of the bigger picture, you know. And revenue management, we don't necessarily care who's bringing the business, if it's, you know, transient or group or wholesale, whatever. We have a goal we want to reach, and we'll get there. And we spend all the time and every minute trying to figure out how to get to that goal. And it's all about top line. So we keep a very specific goal, which is what I love about, numbers. You and I always have this argument how, you can't fake numbers. They're positive or they're negative. It's beautiful. And we all speak that language. And when it comes to this, it's so relationship driven that I have to keep that number focus on my end. Well, they're all super, I work with some really emotional people. Artists are they are emotional in a good way and in a bad way. So keeping that balance of, okay, you go be emotional and I'm going to stay over here and we're going to make sense of everything that you need to accomplish and get it done. So yeah, it's a fun combination.
That's great, because I think you do walk that line between, again, the artistic side, the sales side. You've always understood the sales side, even from a revenue management, your revenue management seat. I'd like to ask you a question. As you've now come from the hotel side and revenue management, dealt with a ton of salespeople there, and now, of course, you're dealing with salespeople all the time on behalf of your clients when you're trying to get into these hotels. What's a lesson or two from revenue management you could take and wish that salespeople understood a little bit more, that would make them better salespeople, not only for their hotel, but in dealing with clients, perhaps?
That is a big one, because I have a lot to say. But
go down to 2 or 3 things then.
Well, there's I've learned, of course, there's good dorms and bad dorms. There's some really, really bad revenue people out there that you're like, what are you doing with that job? And then are some really good ones. And it's the same thing with, sales professionals. You face some really groomed, experienced people. I don't know. It's just, forget about the experience. It's just the heart. Do you really want to get this done for all of us to be successful? Or are you kind of, the whole ego or whatever is holding you back? But I'll tell you pet peeves, because that kind of, I don't want this to turn into anything negative, but pet peeve is a salesperson who tells you, I have to go check with my dorm. And I want to tell them, maybe I need to talk to him. Her, girls got the power. So I got to let me talk to her, because if I need to talk to her. So salespeople need to feel empowered, need to have all the information. And you can tell that one person that doesn't have all the information and is looking maybe, as you would say, at a spreadsheet, even though I love spreadsheets, but has not done the whole homework. So when
to interject real quick, I think even when salespeople have to get a group buy-in from their hotel team, they can speak about it in a way that makes it sound like they're part of the process, as opposed to making it sound like they're just a pass-through person who's giving information from another person behind this curtain, like the Wizard of Oz. Like, let me talk to my team and we can circle back with this solid answer for you. It's much different than saying, I don't have an answer, let me go check with my revenue director and come back to you. Because that just sounds like you're powerless in the transaction. I echo your sentiment there. I think it's very frustrating when you feel like you're talking to someone who's just not part of a team or has no authority within that team, because ultimately they've got to go back to their revenue person or whoever the director is and sell the value of our business. That starts with us, but they have to do it internally at the hotel. So someone who just kind of passes along I don't know, I don't have an answer, I got to go check with my revenue person. I echo that sentiment. So sorry, but I interrupted you. You were saying pet peeve number 2.
No. Well, and that also worked out for the best in some instances, because as you know, I had developed some relationships by just saying, hey, why don't I just get on the phone with your director of revenue and we can work something out? And some really good things have come out of that, to the point where, I just text the dorm and the hotel and say, hey, I'm going to need this. You're going to get an RFP. Please make sure you keep an eye out. Or, this is what I need. I'm looking for this rate, this many rooms. I know you can do it. Or, we understand that straightforwardness of, again, I could speak revenue management with passion for a long time because I know I find that there's a misconception of what revenue professionals do when it comes to sourcing. Sometimes not everyone thinks my former me were nice people. But I've had great success dealing with directly with the revenue professionals, a lot accomplished, and it's good to be able to speak some of that language with someone and not have to be like, okay, you're going to go check, you're going to wait for your next meeting, and I'm here trying to figure this out now. So what are we going to do? You know, when it comes to
I'm glad you brought that up, Tati, because I think that one of the values that we bring to our clients is the ability to speak hotel to a hotel and speak client speak to a client. Like the ability to bridge both worlds and speak from the client's voice, but understanding how the hotel needs to hear it is a critical aspect of what we do. To be able to break down our client's request in language that a hotel can understand, and vice versa. Explain to a client sometimes very delicate nature of how business works in a hotel, where they just don't understand it either. They want what they want, and they don't care how they have to get it. And that's sometimes not how hotels work either. So the ability to speak both languages, whether it be from a revenue management standpoint or a sales standpoint, or a combination, of course, of the two, is critical to be able to provide that value for our clients, to break down some of the foreign language of a hotel speak into client terms and vice versa. That's critical.
Well, and at the same time, yeah, like you said, I'm sure I've done it because sometimes we just have to, but not make it a habit to just call a hotel and ask for things that you know are unreasonable and that clients want to see happen. And you know, that is also something that we bring to the table. You know, again, taking the passion out of it or the emotion and saying, that's not a call I'm going to make because I know the answer. This is what makes sense and what doesn't. So yeah, there's good and there's bad. And
so let me ask you a question here. We are clearly in the midst of unprecedented times. We've never seen anything like this pandemic in our lifetimes. I hope to never have to see it again. It's been an awkward time for sure. What are your strategies coming out of this COVID pandemic? How will you see business differently? What are you doing to retool, I guess, for when business comes back?
Well, my priority right now, and this hasn't been, I'll be honest, through the whole pandemic, as you know, because I was finally able to do now what I meant to do in 17 when I had the little in-between career thing, which is, you know, work on some personal goals. But in terms of Conference Direct, my focus is in building new relationships, meeting the people as we come out of this. I'm sure one day we will, and we'll start meeting again. Something I really want to focus on is work with industries that I'm passionate about, which is not something we always get to do because, you know, we work with different kinds of people, industries, you know, associations, entertainment, all that kind of stuff. But I would really like to build those relationships with the people that I think see my world view a little more aligned. Projects that are close to my heart, things that have to do with feminism and female-driven businesses and all that stuff that, as you know, I care so much about. So meeting those people, connecting with them almost on a personal note first, taking these times when it's all about all of us are trying to rebuild something almost, because we have to start, many people are going to be starting from scratch, but connect on a personal level and then see what comes out of that. But with passion, you know, consistently keep up those conversations. And then when they're ready to pull the plug again, I want to be right there to say, hey, now let's talk business.
I love it.
That's kind of the focus.
That's great. I think especially in times like this, we're human first because we all bleed, you know, the same way. There's a lot of stuff going on that I think makes it easier to relate to people first on a human level before you ever start talking business. And for that to be your focus, I think is spot on. Well done. What do? You talked about personal goals as we wrap up this call and talk a bit about what we're doing to retool from a business standpoint. I'd love to know what you're doing from a leisure standpoint. It's clear that family is key to you. I know that personally because I'm your husband. But I have found this time to be with our daughter to be fantastic and to reconnect with our family, even as via Zoom. But I'm stealing your answer here. Tell me more about things that you do from a leisure side of things now that we have a bit of a lull in business that you're doing to better yourself. How do you keep yourself busy?
Well, I don't know if you covered this. I don't think you did, but some people do know, others don't, that we not only are going through this pandemic for the first time, of course, like everyone, but we also moved countries. So we left the US for a small period of time. We relocated to Colombia, which is the country where I'm from, and where we decided to go on our next first adventure. And this is first time where I've been away from my brother, some family. It's literally just the three of us building our family and doing things. So I think, of course, as you know, Gia has been a huge fan, super interesting focus for us because she's in that age that is super cool. I mean, all the kids our ages are cool, but she's somewhat independent, but not completely independent. So we have to be very involved with her day to day. Doing the homeschooling, being part of the process of her education has been actually fun for me because I have the time. And that's taking a lot of our time, as you know, her homeschooling. I've also changed, or we're working on more passionately changing our eating habits. So we're working on, when I talk about personal, these are things that I wanted to do for a long time, but no excuse, but because of convenience and schedules, you become comfortable with things that you do every day and the things that you eat every day that are accessible to you. And being down here and having access to less expensive, organic, good quality food items has allowed us to kind of build up on that all the new habits, working out differently, being more conscious, connecting your mind to your body when you're doing something physical. Before it was more like go, 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 let's just get this done, and kind of putting more attention on the quality of the things that we do every single day. How is this going to affect us tomorrow? Everything. It's been super fun because, again, this is the first time. I keep telling people I don't want to understate the negative impact of the situation for anyone because it's awful. But for me, it's been such a blessing to be forced to slow down. Like literally you cannot do anything because people are not meeting. So work on things that you had on your back burner forever. And this has been the time, being more selective with what I read. Picky, let's say, like I'm going to spend time on this and I know I have the time, but why do I want to feed my mind with? What shows I watch, what meals we cook, and all those things. So we have very little distractions here, as you know, by choice. And I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I do, I want to watch something that's pretty cool and exciting. And I know a lot of people went through the binge watch. Like I don't know what that is since Game of Thrones with you, because we haven't done that here. So it's all about being more selective with what you're doing with your mind and your time.
I love it.
Pause and think about it. Think about every move, every meal, everything more, and just building good habits. We are the result of our habits. So that's it. It's not super crazy.
The word I'm hearing throughout everything you're saying is being more deliberate. Being deliberate with your approach to what you're feeding your mind, what you're feeding your body. We talk a lot, you know, we've had this conversation before about currencies. And I think that we focus so much on the currency of money, but we neglect sometimes the currency of relationships, of knowledge, of, of, um, of self-improvement, really. Those are currencies as well. And I think that without, um, you know, in the time where the economy is down, how do we reinvest in those other currencies? And I think that you just summed it up brilliantly, to kind of pause and be deliberate about your approach with how you look at life. You know, we're all suffering in some way, I think, through this pandemic, whether it be health-wise, God forbid, or financially, or businesses down, or we're stressed out because we're locked in our homes, or whatever the case is. We're all being impacted through this. So whether it's maybe our family members are being impacted negatively, it's impacting us. But that idea that we have been given a gift to slow down a little bit and be a lot more deliberate in our approach to life is definitely one of the silver linings of this, what many view as a negative pandemic. There's so many negatives to it, don't get me wrong, but the positive gifts that we've been given as a result. I know that you and I share these sentiments, and I'm glad to hear it from your mouth how we are repurposing our life. By the way, little recommendation you turned me on to that I'll share with the listening audience here now, Atomic Habits, which is a book that you turned me on to. Phenomenal.
Great.
Yeah,
great read.
To it on Audible. I think it's like a 3 or 4 hour book. It's not even that long, but it really helped to shift my mindset in how to form better habits and how to leave behind some unhealthy habits. And as we're talking about being deliberate, I find it's been an awesome guide for me. The author's name is James Clear, Atomic Habits. If you guys are listening now and want a great read through this pandemic, and really anytime, it's an awesome.
Oh, and side note about that, because you know I'm all about those books of habits and how to become a little more disciplined with tiny things. So that was really down my alley. That this particular book I got from a CD meeting. I am just going to be terrible right now and not give credit to the right person, but we were at a conference or at meeting when someone brought that up, and I wrote it down on my list. Yeah. So that and the Miracle Morning I got from one of those CD meetings.
I think you might have gotten that from me. I've shared that Miracle Morning one more than.
Yeah, and you probably got it from another CD thing, talking to someone. So it's all full circle.
That's the power of a network, and why I think I'm very passionate about conference directing, the job that we do. I'm going to call you Babe because you're my babe. Babe, it's been great talking to you. I love hearing your side of things. I think this is very inspiring for people who are wondering about what we do and wondering if it might be something for them. And obviously for any client who might be looking to get to know you a little bit better and see what makes you tick. Like I said, we get business by being likable and trustable. One thing you definitely are is very, very likable. I love you tons. Thanks for taking the time. We've got lunch brewing, I think, in the other room, so it's time to go eat. Thank you for joining us for another coffee talk, everybody. This is Jeremy Marquardt. I'm trying to be the man that my younger self needed. Being joined here by my lovely wife, Tati Franco-Marquard. Appreciate you, love you, and give a big kiss to our viewing audience here.
Thank you so much for doing this. I think people are really enjoying the chats from other people. I hope they enjoyed this. This is very casual. And how do you feel about salmon for lunch? Does that sound okay? I'm going to go.
Sounds delightful. Let's go eat. I love you.
I love you too.
All right. Bye.
I'll see you later.